Conor McGregor wants to be on that White House card in June. Conor McGregor wants to take on Michael Chandler on that card. He also wants a lot of money for that. $100 million to fight at the White House, along with 100 U.S. golden visas for myself, family, and friends. I very much look forward to entertaining the fighting world once again. A pleasure I never take for granted. Dirty Boxing card, October 30th is going to be headlined by Gable Steveson versus Billy Swanson. Gable Steveson does everything. D1 wrestling, Olympic wrestling, WWE, NFL, MMA, Dirty Boxing. I thought he'd just stick with MMA and work on that, but I guess he wants to work on his hands, or he just got this opportunity to take this fight. Billy Swanson's been knocked out in his last 4 fights, so he's being brought in here to lose. Gable Steveson will be the favorite, but at the same time, he has no experience in boxing or dirty boxing, so I guess that's advantageous for Billy Swanson. And I guess there is a chance that Gable Steveson sucks at striking, sucks at boxing, so maybe this will be an interesting fight, but more than likely he's being brought in to get KO'd by Gable Steveson. We'll see where Gable's striking level is at. John Jones, who's kind of a mentor, coach, and training partner of his, has confidence in his skills. Jones is also a part owner of Dirty Boxing, so that probably facilitated Gable getting this shot at the main event slot. Khamzat Chimaev doesn't care whether he fights Chimaev next or DeRitter next. Same to him. DeRitter has to beat Brendan Allen first, but even if he does, he probably won't take the title shot away from Chimaev. If he does win, though, and he could be a backup fighter, and guys are always getting injured, so we might get a shot. Detroit, Atlanta, and Charlotte are interested in having the UFC in 2026 for fight night cards, but whatever town or city the UFC goes to, it just comes down to cash. Mark Shapiro, CEO of TKO, says we still have 30 fight nights to sell for UFC, and they can be smaller, but if we got a St. Louis up against the Des Moines, Iowa, if you want us back there and you've sold out and broken records in both your arenas, you have to pay us to come back, or else we'll take it to another town. There's some confusion about PFL belts because they have the super fight champions, they have the tournament champions, and then they have the regular champions. But going forward, it looks like the PFL just wants to do one belt per weight class. So October 3rd, you got Usman versus Paul Hughes 2 for the lightweight title. Same event, Corey Anderson versus Yagshi Muradov for the light heavyweight title. Then December 13th, Nemkov versus Ferreira for the heavyweight title. And on the same card, Cyborg versus Collins for women's featherweight title. Charles Oliveira, slight favorite against Gamrot. Very slight favorite, basically even money. That's the opening odds. Some people that say that's free money on Charles Oliveira, but Gamrot could win a decision. However, Oliveira has more ways to win. Sub KO decision. Gamrot, if he wins, it's probably decision. Oliveira is going to be very dangerous in every single position in the fight, whereas Gamrot probably isn't going to be very dangerous in any position. He could wrestle you and smother you to death kind of thing en route to a decision, but he's going to have to do some damage. Damage is the number one criteria. If he's just wrestling and trying to control and doing no damage, he could lose the fight. That's what happened in the Dan Hooker fight. He lost a split decision. Oliveira being a slight favorite would make sense. Multitude of ways to win. And if he even gets taken down, he still may win because he may just outstrike him like 2-0 and do more damage and get a decision. Ticket sales for UFC Perth on Saturday have not been that great, apparently. It's not too surprising because they're very expensive tickets for a card that's just sort of okay. Like maybe like slightly better than an Apex Fight Night card, but just okay. So I guess people are like, we're not really going to pay that much money for just a whatever card.
The WA government's financial investment in cage fighting is in question tonight, with poor ticket sales to a UFC event this weekend. UFC Fight Night is being staged at RAC Arena, but the venue is only about half full and tickets are now being discounted.
Ultimate Fighting Championship is back in town. A decent turnout for a welcome to country ahead of Sunday's event. The response to UFC's return visit to Perth this year has been disappointing, not the sellout of previous years.
Michelle Montague makes her UFC debut Saturday against Luana Carolina. Montague is the favorite. Picking her by rear naked choke is a straightforward pick. She's won all her fights by rear naked choke, 6 wins, 6 RNCs.
I'm a grippy little bugger, so once I get you, it's quite hard to get away. I didn't have any combat sports background, so when I started, the thing that I was able to compete in almost every weekend was jiu-jitsu. Even though I liked wrestling the most in my brain because it was like rugby, and striking seemed the most important, it was what I ended up doing the most was jiu-jitsu. So I have a lot of reps in those positions, and it's like when you favor something, you start working on it more accidentally. And I think it's just the fact that I've got farmer strength grip. It has definitely presented itself the most, but I think my favorite, because it's a little riskier, would be the knee bar. But again, much riskier to be throwing up that with 2 minutes to go and end up on bottom. So it's not something that I'd be ripping out like a rear-naked choke.
Jimmy Crute versus Ivan Urslan is the co-main event on Saturday. Crute's happy to be fighting in his home.
There's heaps. Changes me not having to travel 20 hours to go fight, and then travelling to get home. It's just straightforward. And the hometown, home city, home country crowd is electrifying. It's just loud and it's awesome. Film study, I've looked at his game. I know what he likes to try and do in there. I don't really have many thoughts on him. I don't know him. I don't care to know him, so I'm just going to go out there. He likes to try and do, and I like to know what I'm getting in there against. But at the end of the day, it's just me, what I'm bringing to the table. You know, people know what I'm going to bring and they can't stop it. So that's how I like to fight. Whenever the UFC give me a name that's in the top 15, I'll say yes. I just say yes and go fight.
Sakura has asked the UFC to move up to the bantamweight division from the flyweight division, and they've agreed. His UFC career has not turned out very well. He lost his UFC debut. He got a title shot in his UFC debut against Pantoja, lost that fight, and then just recently lost to Tim Elliott, and now he's vacated the weight class. Before Gamrot signed to fight Charles Oliveira and replace Fiziev, he was actually going to be matched up with Nazim Sadahov in the main event on November 8th fight night card at the UFC Apex. Kind of interesting. Gamrot gets offered fights in every direction. He either fights unranked guys who are going to do nothing for his career or top-ranked fighters. He fought unranked Ludwig Klein in his last fight, but before that he was offered Arman Sarukian, who's ranked number 2. Arman did not take that fight though. Then he gets a fight with Nazim Sadahov, who is unranked, but then he replaces Fiziev to fight Oliveira, who's ranked number 4. So he's either taking unranked guys that are going to do nothing for his career or top-ranked guys who are going to possibly line him up for title contention. Nazim Sadahov needs a new fight. Then he was involved in one of the best fights of the year against Nicholas Mota, a fight that Sadahov won in his home nation of Azerbaijan. Some other fight of the year contenders thus far include Lopez versus Silva, the recent fight between them, Roy Val versus Van, and Duncan versus Rebeski, all fights that were relatively recent. That November 8th card that Sadahov was supposed to be on at the UFC Apex has added Tisha Pennington versus Denise Gomes. Pennington is coming off a decision win over Luana Pinheiro, whereas Denise Gomes is coming off a knockout victory over Elise Reed. She has some pretty solid knockout power. She's knocked out Bruna Brazil and Yoregi in the UFC, and now Elise Reed in her last fight. And on the regional scene, she had 4 KOs as well. So very strong power puncher, whereas Tisha Pennington's never been stopped in her career. Even when she loses by decision. When she wins, it's almost always by decision too. So decision win if Tisha Pennington wins, whereas Denise Gomes could win by decision or KO. Yuri Prochazka receives his master's degree in security and strategic studies. He will be taking on Khalil Roundtree next weekend in Vegas, UFC 320, October 4th. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, and share if you want to support the channel. You can via super thanks donations, and on the main page, there's also a link to donate.